How's it going, guys? It's John Holt here, and today I want to talk to you about the differences between Ableton Live and Logic Pro X, two of the most popular pieces of software in the industry. I'm going to show you my 3 favourite features of each, and then I'm going to talk you through the pros and the cons of each piece of software so that you can make your mind up. That's all coming up. So here we are in Logic Pro X. Now, the first of my 3 favourite features in Logic is the quick swipe comping tool. So let's have a look at it. If you set a section of the song to record on a loop, like a guitar solo or a vocal hook for example, it will keep recording different takes and package them up neatly into a folder, just like this, and it's really handy. This is a demonstration of the quick swipe comping tool in Logic. This is a demonstration of the quick swipe comping tool in Logic. There we go, so I've just recorded 2 takes of the same passage, and what I can do is then I can click and drag and choose which sections of which take I want to include in the final comp. So the quick swipe is the swiping that we're doing here, and the comping is the compiled sort of take that we've got up here, which I think that's a really, really powerful tool. This is a demonstration of the quick swipe comping tool in Logic. There we go, so that was a demonstration of the quick swipe comping tool in Logic. This is a demonstration of the quick swipe comping tool in Logic. The second feature that I find really useful in Logic is the Smart Controls section, which you can bring up by pressing B when you're in the main window. In most other recording software, if you want to adjust a plugin, then you have to have the plugin open, which takes up space on the screen. And Logic's solution to this is Smart Controls, which gives you access to a selection of controls on any plugin in that track without needing to have any of the plugins open. So I've got a compressor on this audio track, but I can leave that closed and adjust the threshold, ratio, etc. all from here. And also what you can do is you can come up to the eye up here and you can set any parameter on this channel, so volume, pan, all of these, as well as any of the plugins parameters, to be controlled by any of these dials. You can set this up to be really custom, and then you can map it to a MIDI controller that you might have to have a really hands-on control as well. Now, the final feature on this shortlist is the plugin manager. Now, this is a bit of an OCD organizational one for me, but I really like the fact that you can organize your third-party plugins into these pre-existing folders that are in the plugin menu here, like amps and pedals, delay, EQ, and so on. You can even create custom folders like I have here, John Most Used and Isotope PP Suite. These are both custom, so let me show you how to do that. So you come up to Preferences and then Plugin Manager, and here you go. You can create your own custom folders with the plus button just here, which is what I did for John Most Used. So these are the plugins that I use in almost every session, which I want to have really quick access to. And then also I have an Isotope plugin suite, which I've put into its own custom folder. Once you start to build up a library of plugins, you'll find that A, it can be a hassle hunting through your entire collection just for one plugin, and B, you'll have a few core plugins that you use in almost every track that you want really quick access to, like my John's Most Used folder on here. Now let's jump into Ableton and have a look at my favourite features in there. So my first favourite feature of Ableton is this whole view, which is the session view, which is totally unique to Ableton. It allows you to store clips of audio and MIDI and trigger them in different combinations to come up with arrangement ideas for your song. So for example, in here, I've got all of the elements that are in my last tech house track that I made. So if I wanted to start playing around and see how I wanted to introduce the song, I could start off with the kick, see what it'd sound like if I add in the claps and hi-hats. And then how would that sound with the bass? Nope, don't want the bass, so I can take that back out. Add in a bit of percussion, and so on. You can see how you can really play around with different arrangement ideas before you have to commit to them. If we use the analogy that making a song is like building a house, the session view is where you'd make, store, and test out the bricks, and then the arrangement view is the foundation where you'd start to lay those bricks down in the arrangement that you'd want. And the arrangement view you can access just up here, and you can see how this is a bit more of a standard layout for a DAW, which is a horizontal layout, and you can see how I've laid it out with the drums up here, the synths and whatnot. That's what you would expect to see from a DAW. Secondly, another thing that I really like in Ableton is this Places section just over here on the left, which allows you to make shortcuts to folders of samples stored on your computer. You can set a shortcut for any folder on your Mac or PC just by doing this. You come to Add Folder, and then you find the folder on your computer. So, for example, I think I've got samples in here somewhere. Mixing and producing, samples. So if I wanted to just link to my whole samples folder, I could do that. And then that creates a shortcut just here. So I can come in and find any of my samples, drag and drop them straight into Ableton to use, which I think workflow-wise is a really powerful tool. And workflow is a massive part of making music when you're on limited time, which I think the majority of people are. My final favorite feature of Ableton is the preset send and return tracks, which allow you to really quickly put reverb or delay on any track just by turning up these dials here. And those reverb and delay tracks are set up just over here. Now, my top tip with these would be to put your own favorite reverb and delay in here, which is where you put the plugins, and then save this session as a template for every Ableton session that you make in the future. And you do that by coming up to Preferences and going File, Folder, and save the current set as default. And then whatever you've got in this session is what's going to come up whenever you open up a blank Ableton session, so you can have your own plugins set on here. All that's going to do is make sure that you're not using the same reverb and delay on your tracks as a lot of other people are, because they will sort of tend to just use the presets. So here's a quick table of the pros and cons of Ableton and Logic, very, very quickly summarized. And this is completely personal to me from what I've found over using them for the last couple of years. You might disagree, you might agree, but this is just a little concise summary of my few years of using both pieces of software. Now, the pros of Ableton are that the loop-based workflow is really powerful, and the sound packs and extra packs that you can get included are really, really extensive as well. There's absolutely everything that you need to start making music in there. There's great integration with a brand called Novation, who make MIDI keyboards and launch pads, which you might have seen covers on YouTube, which are really cool. Ableton can be used on Mac or PC, which is a massive benefit over Logic, which can only be used on the Mac, which we'll come on to in a moment. Ableton also has really, really strong MIDI editing capabilities, so great for electronic music producers. Now, one of the cons of Ableton is it's not as good as recording audio as Logic, in my opinion. And it's also quite a bit more expensive than Logic, but you do get a lot for your money. You do get a lot of extra sound packs that you can download, which is a really good sample library, which is something that producers end up spending quite a lot of money on, so it's definitely a good investment. And in my opinion, when you're grouping up tracks, it just doesn't look very nice in Ableton, and it doesn't work very well in the clip-based workflow. So the pros of Logic are it's absolutely great at audio recording and take handling, which is really, really something that I value. So if you've got a singer and they go through 3 or 4 takes, you don't have to chop up individual bits to try and get the best verse and the best chorus and the best intro and try and stick them all together timing-wise. It can be a real nightmare. So that take handling and quick swipe comping is really powerful. I think it's a very intuitive layout and really easy to understand. Logic is what I learnt in, it's what I've come to be certified in, and I think it's the most intuitive for beginners. It's also got really, really good instruments, plugins, and sounds included for the price. So I think the plugins like the EQ and compressor that come with Logic are the best ones that come with any piece of software. And also there's a forum called logicprohelp.com, which has got really, really active administrators and a really good community where you can ask questions and get a really quick response and find answers to almost any Logic Pro X question that you might have. Now, the cons of Logic, firstly, are that you can only get it on Mac. So PC users, I'm sorry, this isn't going to be available to you. There's also no looping function for testing out your arrangement. To me, that's not a massive deal. It's a nice feature to have in Ableton, but it's not an absolute deal breaker for Logic by any means. And lastly, one thing that I prefer doing in Ableton is making drums. So Ultrabeat, which is a drum synth in Logic, is great. But the ESX24, which is the sampler, I think is just quite clunky in comparison to something like the drum rack in Ableton, which I find a really nice workflow. So as a very brief summary, overall, I prefer Logic Pro X. I think it's excellent at audio recording, and it's also really, really good for electronic music production, whereas Ableton sort of falls down a little bit on the audio recording side of things. If you've got any questions about this video, then feel free to drop them down in the comments below, and I'll get back to you. Now, thank you for spending a little bit of time with me today. I've been John Holt, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care.
The Pyramind Mentorship Network, connects you to experienced professionals for truly customized private training in music production, sound design, music business, and more. Use our scheduling tool to select the type of training you want, pick your mentor, find a day and time that works best for you, then book your session. Your appointment will be confirmed instantly. Study only what you want, progress at your own pace, pay as you go, and do it all from the comfort of your home or studio. Our global network of industry experts are here to help you. Visit pyramind.com/mentorship to get started.